Helen, can you keep a secret?
Is it worth keeping?
Mr. Heathcliff? I'm Lockwood, your new tenant, sir, at Thrushcross Grange.
Will you forget me?
I could no more forget you or myself.
I dreamt once that I was in heaven, and heaven didn't seem to be my home. And I broke my heart with weeping to come back to earth.
You can't. Heathcliff's not a man, but something dark and horrible to live with.
I forgive what you've done to me, Kathy. Because I love my murderer.
Haunt me. Be with me always. Take any form. Drive me mad. Only don't leave me in this abyss.
Do you expect me to leave him in the streets of Liverpool?
Yes, I would. You must be mad to bring a gypsy brat into the house.
He's more myself than I am. Whatever our souls are made of, his and mine are the same.
Emily Bronte was born on July 30th, 1818, on Market Street in the village of Thornton in Yorkshire, England. Her early childhood was rife with misery. Her mother died of cancer when she was only 3, and 2 of her older sisters, Maria and Elizabeth, died of tuberculosis within months of each other when Emily was only 7. After that, it was simply Charlotte, Emily, Anne, and their brother Branwell. Emily was often described as shy, anxious, and reclusive. She made very few friends and preferred to spend much of her time at home, even going so far as to drop out of a boarding school at age 17. Charlotte wrote that she believed Emily would truly perish if she were not given the freedom she desired. Emily had written poetry from a young age, and in 1846 she joined together with her sisters to publish her first book, Poems by Currer, Ellis, and Acton Bell. The names were changed to seem more masculine and thus more favourable to the public. Emily published her second and most famous book, Wuthering Heights, the following year in a set that included Anne's Agnes Grey. It was poorly received at first, and by the time its popularity was truly realised, Emily Bronte was already long dead. But if Wuthering Heights has taught us anything, it's that death is not the end of the story. Within a year after publication, Wuthering Heights had already gotten quite a few negative reviews. One man, James Lorimer of the North British Review, claimed, "Here the faults of Jane Eyre are magnified 1,000-fold, and the only consolation which we have in reflecting upon it is that it will never be generally read." Another reviewer, name unknown, writing for The Spectator, gave Ellis Bell some grace, claiming the success is not equal to the abilities of the writer, chiefly because the incidents are too coarse and disagreeable to be attractive. The execution, however, is good. Still another, this time anonymous, writer for The Examiner described the book as wild, confused, disjointed, and improbable, going on to claim, "We detest the affectation and effeminate frippery which is but too frequent in the modern novel, and willingly trust ourselves with an author who goes at once fearlessly into the moors," not knowing, of course, that Ellis Bell was truly Emily Bronte, a woman. However, there were a few positive reviews as well. An anonymous reviewer for Douglas Jerrold's weekly newspaper claimed Wuthering Heights is a strange sort of book, baffling all regular criticism, yet it is impossible to begin and not finish it. We strongly recommend all our readers who love novelty to get this story. All in all, while Emily Bronte's writing abilities were applauded, Wuthering Heights was not appreciated in its own day and age, but as time went on, that began to change. The turn of the century saw the rise of the silent era of film. This is also when the first film adaptation of Wuthering Heights hit the big screen in 1920, directed by A.V. Bramble and starring Milton Rosmer and Anne Trevor. While this paved the way for future adaptations, the film itself unfortunately did not stand the test of time, and is counted among the estimated 75% of silent films that are completely lost. The The first major adaptation of Wuthering Heights was produced in 1939 by Samuel Goldwyn. It was directed by William Wyler, and it starred Laurence Olivier and Merle Oberon. Among its grand accolades and awards were 8 Academy Award nominations, the 1940 Academy Award for Best Cinematography, and the 1939 New York Film Critics Award for Best Film. In 2007, the film was also selected for preservation in the United States National Film Registry by the Library of Congress as being culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. But while the film had great success, it wasn't exactly faithful to Emily Bronte's original masterpiece. While the novel was divided into 2 volumes, telling the stories of the 2 generations of Earnshaws and Lintons, the film omitted the entire second volume, and thus the children. What's more is that Samuel Goldwyn decided to include an additional scene at the end of the movie, when all other filming had already been completed. The scene depicted Heathcliff and Cathy's ghosts roaming the moors together, deeply in love. This change, which went against director Wyler's wishes, forever changed the way Catherine was viewed by the public, turning her more passive and accepting of abuse than Bronte intended. Still, for the most part, it retained the essence of the original story and brought this timeless tale to a wider audience than ever seen before. The 1970s were a popular time for Wuthering Heights, starting in 1970 with the semaphore version of Wuthering Heights, the 15th episode of Monty Python's Flying Circus starring Terry Jones and Carol Cleveland. The decade continued on to include what is widely considered to be the most accurate adaptation of the novel, partially because it was extended into a 5-part television series, each one approximately an hour long. Such is the case for the 1978 BBC version, directed by Peter Hammond and starring Ken Hutchison and Kate Adshead. But what was most revolutionary about this adaptation is that it was the first time the entire story, with the next generation, was included. However, since it doesn't fall under the movie umbrella, being a TV series, it is often disregarded in favour of the 1992 version, which also depicted the full plot. But one must remember that just because this adaptation is the most faithful, that doesn't make it the best. Another prominent adaptation of Wuthering Heights during this period was Kate Bush's song by the same name. It topped the UK singles chart for 4 weeks, not only propelling the 130-year-old novel into even greater fame, but also making Bush the first female artist to write an entirely original #1 single. She wrote the song after watching the BBC adaptation, reading the book, and discovering her and Emily Bronte shared the same birthday. It only took her a few hours to compose, and she recorded the vocals in a single take. The song inspired an annual event called the Most Wuthering Heights Day Ever, where participants from around the world come together to recreate the song's music video, further cementing the novel's continuing legacy. This song was the first of many inspired by Wuthering Heights. Other notable works include Japanese violinist Rikuko Kawai's instrumental composition titled Wuthering Heights, Dear Heathcliff, and Death Cab for Cutie's 2008 song titled Cab. The most recent adaptation of Wuthering Heights came out in 2022, directed by Brian Ferreter and starring also Brian Ferreter and Jet Gendreau. The film was not very expensive, not very well done, not very successful, and yet very faithful to the original story. While it's never good to end on a bad note, this movie also paves the way for another, better adaptation to come out soon. On another note, the movie Emily, a semi-biographical, part-fictional account of Emily Bronte's life, also came out in 2022. It was directed by Frances O'Connor and starred Emma Mackey. While O'Connor used inspiration from Bronte's actual life, most of the plot is her own imagined retelling and harbours very little truth. Still, it was well received, proving that even now, as we approach 200 years after the life of Emily Bronte, that little book no one thought would go anywhere has become an everlasting tale of love, life, misery, death, the cyclical nature of existence, and how every story, no matter how tragic, can still have a happy ending.
So many men who would have loved you more. Soon everybody will ask what became of you. 'Cause your heart